Hello and welcome to Coaching Overwatch, where we discuss a variety of topics to improve our understanding of coaching in Overwatch. I'm Coach Sexy. Let's get started. Here are all the topics I'm looking to explore over the next month or so, with one bite-sized video per topic. If one piques your interest, let me know in the comments and I'll try to get to that one more quickly. Today, we're discussing leadership essentials. As a coach, leadership qualities are important, not just because they'll serve as a foundation from which your actions and behavior are built from, but also because they will serve as a mirror that your team reflects. So what does that mean? As the leader, make no mistake, your team will mimic your behavior to varying degrees. So to that end, the more you instill positive qualities within yourself, the more you will affect tangible change within your team. This avoids the heavy-handed approach of forcing your players to behave or act in a certain way. Essentially, this means leading by example, not by force. And it works the other way as well. If you exhibit poor behavior, that will also be reflected in the team. So let's avoid that and look at positive leadership qualities. Let's start with integrity. It's an interesting topic because it can mean subtly or wildly different things to different people. Now, why is that? Well, integrity is the characteristic of adhering to moral and ethical values, and it's those values that can vary from person to person. For instance, if you look at the concept of lying, you can easily find people who disagree on which cases are okay to lie and which are not. People draw different lines in the sand, so to speak. And when it comes to leadership, it's critical that you both have these lines and respect them. This isn't to say that your values can't evolve and grow, they probably will and probably should. But if you're playing hopscotch with the line, you're really asking for trouble. So what are your values? Well, putting it very broadly, it's probably things like being on time to practice, focusing during review, treating all your teammates reasonably and fairly, etc. And you should have clearly defined consequences for breaking those values. So avoid just arbitrarily deciding on the day what your values are. You'll succumb to the swinging of your emotions that way. Instead, set guidelines that your players are aware of and hold yourself and your players accountable. Integrity will be the bones of your team structure, and they can't waver or wobble. How do you inspire players? Well, the cinematic way to think about it is through heartfelt speeches and charismatic character, with lots of energy and passion. And while some people are downright amazing at this, no one can give a new and refreshing motivational speech every game, nor should you try. Save those for the big games. So what else can you do? Well, for one, you can develop strong and close relationships with your players. And while you shouldn't try to act as a peer, you can be friendly and caring towards your players. And take a moment to consider people in your life that you develop close relationships with. I bet they inspired you in obvious ways and nuanced ways. So what else can you do? This may sound cliche, but being tastefully positive and encouraging does wonders, as well as shedding the negative tendencies from your behavior. You have to do both to kind of get the whole package. What else? Understand your job well and do your job well. People will notice and follow your lead. And a quick tangent, part of your job as coach is to shield your players from public criticism. When there's a problem or failure, shoulder the blame, and your players will be very inspired by your goodwill. Lastly, not everyone is inspired the same way. Learn how each individual reacts to things and plan accordingly. Communication is what keeps a group of people flowing. This would probably be the worst of all the leadership qualities to lack. Now, why is that? Because a poor communicator in a leadership position can dismantle structures, workflows, and processes very rapidly, like a snake bite that turns blood into jello. Everything will just stop working if communication is inconsistent, confusing, self-conflicting, irrelevant, etc., even if you are an amazing leader in all other aspects. So how do you improve your ability to communicate? Thankfully, this is the most tangible leadership quality we're looking at today, but it's also an incredibly large topic. So you can easily find podcasts, books, articles, and videos to help improve your ability to communicate. And don't just assume your communication is good enough. Take any chances you can to improve it. One quick tip I can give is that after you've made a statement, especially if it had a difficult concept or took a long time to explain, point out that you might need to re-explain it and ask if what you said made sense. This gives people the opportunity to speak up because you took ownership of the potential miscommunication and opened up a window of opportunity for more clarification. If you don't do this, you leave the door open for misunderstanding. And if several individuals have different understandings of something you explained, that problem will manifest itself later, possibly in an ugly way. So be very deliberate in your communication. Decisiveness is one of those leadership qualities that really gets better on the job. Your ability to make incredibly hard decisions will be tested and improved over time, like a fighter trying to sharpen their reaction times. So let's examine good decision-making practices. Number 1, While you can't plan for everything, you should constantly try to anticipate upcoming problems and prepare for them. This can lift an immense amount of pressure that would have otherwise crushed you. To use an oversimplified example, if you notice a player at practice coughing and sniffling, it's time to ask questions like, what if they can't play this week? What if they get other players sick? Should I send them to the doctor? Etc. Number 2, verify your assumptions and data. Do your best to make sure the information you have is correct, whether it came from a person or a computer. If you have diversified sources saying the same thing, that's generally a good sign. Number 3, look at previous decisions you've made. This will keep you consistent and prevent you from making the same mistakes twice. Number 4, prioritize. Find the most important decision and focus on that first. Usually, some big decisions trickle down and make it easier to handle smaller decisions. Number 5, ask for help. Getting the input of the people on your team is extremely helpful when the context allows for it. Especially get it from people who are going to be directly affected by this decision. And sometimes you can consult with people outside of your team, especially if they have expertise in your problem. Number 6, always be mindful of the order in which you inform your team about decisions. You will have to make some painfully difficult decisions, especially when it comes to which players get playtime. If you're going to sub out a player for an upcoming match, it's almost certainly best to inform that player first. No one likes being caught off guard. Number 7, once you've made the decision, hold yourself and everyone accountable to it. And if the context allows for it, make it clear to your team that your decision can be changed, but only if there's a compelling reason to do so. Number 8, don't beat yourself up over a poor decision. It also helps to record poor decisions and reflect on them so that A, it feels like you get closure and your mind can stop hassling you about it, and B, in the future you can go back and look at your history of decision making. And while we're on the topic of decisions, your team and staff should feel like you empower them to make decisions. They should be as autonomous as possible within reasonable boundaries, and it's up to you to set those boundaries and allow them to make mistakes, fail, and learn within those boundaries. Another way to think about it is delegation. Let's say you were delegating a task to your analyst. Here's an example of delegation with boundaries that are too broad. Hey, we didn't do too well on escort maps this week. Can you work on that? This seems like too daunting of a task and doesn't give the analyst enough context to properly do their job. This is too similar to, hey, can you make the team better? Let's look at a task that's boundaries are too constrictive. Our Dorado is our worst map of all the escort maps by far. Can you find hero composition changes to fix it? This is getting into the realm of micromanagement because it assumes that the issue is and only is based on the hero compositions, which doesn't give the analyst room to do their job, and that's dangerous. Here's a task that properly sets boundaries. Our Dorado is our worst map of all the escort maps by far. Can you find out why and how to fix it? This gives the analyst context and well-defined boundaries to empower them to find both the problem and the solution. The same goes for players. You want to give them guidance and have pre-planned compositions and strategies, but they also need the autonomy to switch on the fly. Mistakes will be made, but remember that failure is a precursor to learning and therefore success. Empathy is one of the most beautiful traits humans possess. And while some people are naturally more empathetic than others, it is a skill that can be built up. However, of all the qualities we spoke of today, this may be the most challenging to improve upon because it will require you to stretch yourself out, sometimes in uncomfortable ways like a yoga pose. But as you reshape and remold yourself, you'll learn more about yourself and the others around you. So how do you improve empathy? The best way is to have new experiences, especially ones that you are uncomfortable with. This may mean traveling somewhere far, or going to a social event you think is silly, or reading a book that you don't think aligns with your views, or maybe it's uploading a YouTube video about something you care about, or writing an article about something you care about. Maybe it's painting a picture. The list goes on and on. The point is to make yourself vulnerable, because that's how your players will feel all the time. Vulnerable to public ridicule, vulnerable to criticism, and most importantly, vulnerable to you. And how can you truly help someone if you don't know what it feels like to be in their position? All right, so what's a good plan to improve these leadership qualities? Unlike the last two videos where we discussed plug and play techniques and concepts, improving these qualities will require self-change and action. I recommend setting up a simple and easy goal structure. Pick one time out of the week, maybe just 1 or 2 hours, where you can focus on boosting up one of these leadership qualities. And that might not seem like a lot, but it will add up very quickly. Much like muscle building, you'll see huge gains in the first few months. Then all you have to do is pick a quality and decide how to improve it. Maybe it's volunteering. Maybe it's speaking with an admired elder, or listening to a podcast, or reading a book, or shadowing a friend at work. Whatever the case may be, you can get creative and you will find solutions. All right, so the TLDR is improve yourself, and those improvements will manifest themselves within the team. Integrity, inspiration, communication, decisiveness, empowerment, and empathy. Okay, I'll link a transcription of this video below. Until next time.